Hello, wrestling fans. Welcome to a bit of an impromptu Talmbout wrestling video. Now, this is a bit of an offshoot. It's not a What's Up Wednesday. It's not even a Talmbout wrestling episode. But there was no way that I was going to be able to wait until Saturday to talk about what was Wrestlemania 42. It's fresh. It's fresh in the mind. And I feel like it's best to talk about it while it's fresh in the mind because why not? You know, you want to get the most accurate takes. You want to get the most accurate emotions. I would have did it last night, but I couldn't. But that's okay. I'm doing it now. I'm gonna pull up the card, make sure. Because I'm not. So we're not gonna cover. We're not gonna exactly cover the entire show the way that I'll do Saturday. I won't even go over my predictions for real. Again, I'll do that Saturday. How are we go from 10 to 7? Okay. So I'm not going to go over the whole show as far as a whole review per se. I'm not going to go over my predictions. Again, I'll cover all of that Saturday for the official Talmbout Wrestling show. But as far as just my overall thoughts, I did want to come and do that first. So this won't be that long. I'll try to keep it 15 minutes or so. 20? 30? We'll see. We'll see what happens. There's no rush, right? And overall, it was a very uneven series of events. There are some pros, some cons. There's some good, some bad. I think I may fall in the general public. I think I fall with where the general public of wrestling fans and those who are WWE fans. I don't know. Some of you WWE fans are. The drones are droning, right? I'm also willing to say that maybe I'm the problem. I may be part of the problem because I expect something sometimes from not just WWE but a wrestling show that WWE seems not to want to give me sometimes. So there's that. I pulled up the card just to make sure I remember everything from my notes. A few things of note to talk about. Like I said, it was a very up and down mismatched show. And it really does break down into night 1 versus night 2. It's very simple, and those two shows were night and day. Now, in the past, it has been slightly uneven a lot of times. And usually night 1 tends to take the title, if you will. Night 1 usually, and I think some of that's because night 1 is where all the excitement in, and it's like boom, it's released, and then night 2 usually is not lackluster, but it doesn't have the same energy because a lot of people expended that energy the night before. 40 is kind of a rare case, and even because they had some high points. I have to go back and watch it, but what I remember and what I recall, night 40, night 1 and night 2 were both still very strong nights for the show. 41, I think night 1 was better than night 2. 39 may have been similar. Again, I had to kind of go back and watch. A lot of that's like match placement and how they did the card. This year was interesting because on paper, I wasn't interested in a lot going into Mania. I wasn't interested in a whole lot. WWE had one job. I've been yelling that. If you watch the show, if you follow me on social media, if you've seen anything that I post, I've been saying this since the match first even got remotely brought up. One job. And they did that. But we'll talk about that maybe later or Saturday. But I was looking forward to that. that may have been the main thing that I was looking forward to for real. And I was curious to see how the Trick and Sammy thing would play out. I didn't really care about Jade and Rhea. So there wasn't a lot that I had like high hopes for or anything like that. The main thing for me was the Open Femmy match. Punk and Reigns. You know how I feel about Punk. I have made no bones about it. How I feel about CM Punk, especially since he's been back in WWE, but really towards the end of his AEW run. But neither here nor there. And then of course, Roman, I'm kind of indifferent to. Like, it's cool. I'm glad to have seen him shake out of the doldrums of what he was before 2020 and the tribal chief head of the table run. But the insistence on kind of going back to him is kind of like, okay. But, you know, so I can even say in one of our groups, one of my Facebook groups, we were talking about Mania, and like it was like 7:15, and the main event hadn't started, and there were no more matches, but the main event. And I was like, oh man, it's not even 8:00 yet, and it's main event time. I'm like, this match is going to drag because Roman matches tend to drag. Roman does a lot of rest holds, a lot of talking to the camera, a lot of posing. Punk is old school, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, so I didn't think that was I didn't have high hopes for that at all. So going in with very little, going in with very little expectation or anticipation of anything, what I got, again, very mixed bag. We start with the most obvious thing, and it's the thing that everybody's talking about, and it's the thing that it's not even the elephant in the room. It's just a thing. The ads were out of control. They were ridiculous. They were insane. I think we were in after the second match. So there was night one, there was the 6-man Usos and LA Knight versus I Show Speed and Austin Theory, which was very short. And when it ended, I was like, oh. But I'm also like, but it's on ESPN and you only got an hour. So maybe you just wanted to keep that short because you got to do that. And you know. And I'm sure they want Drew and Jacob Fatu to have a little time for what they're doing. So kind of could understand that. The matches being short. That one especially felt short. There were only a couple of I'll get to that in a minute too. So I think between those two matches, I looked at that and I was like, you know, it's only been like an hour, and we've already seen more ads in this event than the entirety of AEW Dynasty. Just fact. I'm not even going to compare because I could, but it doesn't. They don't compare. It's not even close. It wouldn't even be fair. And if you're a WWE drone, I'll admit that I am an AEW shill, absolutely. But I'm sorry, you can't compare. You just can't compare. They don't even. The only things you could possibly compare here would be CM Punk and Roman. And this is dead ass. I'm not even being facetious. Punk and Roman versus Kenny and MJF. Maybe you can throw some comparison there, but besides that, nothing. It's not even. They're not even in the same realm. But night one, the ad, but on both nights, it's not even a night one thing. On both nights, the ads were so aggressive. The Hulk Hogan documentary thing that kept, like, by night two, So I watched it. As you probably heard, I watched it in Paradiso Theater. Shout out to everybody that went to the Paradiso to watch. Um, one night or both nights, because I actually couldn't tell. There were seemed to be different people. I know there had to be some repeats, but it seemed like there were different people there on both nights. Because I definitely had like some different crowds. Both of them were very animated. Both were very into the show. Night two probably more than night one, but again, that makes sense. But by night two, there were audible groans and jeers every time the Hulk Hogan documentary came. And then, like, at least I guess you can't show more than the pieces that you show, because eventually you would just show the whole documentary. But at that point, you might as well. You know, it's kind of like stop trying to make fetch happen. But yeah, the ads were ridiculous. The you had to get used to WWE changing in the way of like, well, this match is presented by this company, and this match is presented by this company, and this match is presented by this company, and the aggressive branding and advertising within the show itself was egregious, and then somehow that turned like almost outward, and now it's part of your viewing experience as a whole. Before I even started recording this, there's somebody on Threads who, kind of saying, you know what I don't care about? I don't care about match time. I don't care about match ratings. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. I only care about, was I sports entertained? And that is absolutely a fair point. And is the bottom line. Match ratings shouldn't really matter, because that's just a person's opinion. It's subjective as fuck. And if you like it, if you don't like it, that's up to you. And overall, I'll say, if you enjoy WrestleMania, even night one, great for you. But if you're going to act as if there being more ad time than in-ring time on a show called Wrestlemania, you're being very disingenuous, and you are the problem. I'm sorry. I am sorry. If you're fine with, and look, I know a lot of people say they like short matches, for whatever reason, they're not a marathon fan, and that's fine. If you're not, if that's your thing, that's your thing. But again, you wouldn't apply that to anything else. You would not apply that leniency to anything else. You wouldn't. I saw somebody trying to make the comparison to the Super Bowl. Like, oh, there's only a little bit of playing time for the Super Bowl, compared to the ads there. That may be true. I don't know how true that stat is. The person said it was true. So whatever. But here's the difference with that. I'm not paying for this exclusively. I'm not subscribed to an app that I don't necessarily need to watch this one thing, basically, that I'm only watching once a month. Okay? I have HBO Max for AEW. I watch it weekly. The ESPN thing is just the pay-per-view, so you're using it like once a month. And you're bombarding that with ads. AEW doesn't bombard me with ads, and I'm giving that just for the comparison. Again, you don't give anything else that leniency about these ads. And the thing with the Super Bowl is, like I said, I'm not paying for an app. Now I don't have cable. There's still ways you can watch the Super Bowl without cable. You can watch it on, I think you can watch it on Tubi. So there's still ways to watch it. They make the Super Bowl, in most cases, depending on who's carrying it, very accessible, even if you don't have these special things. So WWE has become so, to go from pay-per-view to the WWE Network to Peacock, all these things were fairly accessible, fairly not inexpensive, and the economy was in a very different crunch, to something being very, intentionally difficult to access in this ESPN app. Because it's not just you have the ESPN app, you got to have the ESPN Unlimited app. So you got to, they force you into this higher tier of paying thing. And that sounds like some TKO shit, to be perfectly honest with you. And the second thing is, fine, maybe there are a lot of commercials for the Super Bowl. They pay millions of dollars for these commercials, and they're different commercials, and they are, at least they attempt. The commercials are a part of the Super Bowl. There are just as many people who watch. When me and my brothers watch the Super Bowl, we watch just as much for the commercials as we do the game. So even that has become is a part of the show. You know, that's not the case with. And don't get me wrong, WrestleMania's always had like some sort of ads. I'm not saying like, you know, it never had any kind of ads. But they're legit like commercial breaks. Because I'm not even sure what feed we were watching. I guess it was the Netflix feed, even though it had like the ESPN thing on it. Because they would keep going to breaks. Like, oh, we will be right back. And that's the thing they do on Netflix during Raw sometimes. Is that, oh, we will be right back. And then you're just kind of watching a roll of things going. So it's like, why are we taking breaks on WrestleMania? I promise you, okay, for the amount of time, listen, for the amount of time that, and again, maybe this is clearly just a thing. It's not even WrestleMania. I think it just was more egregious because you had more people tuning in this time, and it felt way more heavy-handed, way more bombarded. I hadn't watched. I think I watched the Elimination Chamber. No, I watched the Rumble too, since it's been on ESPN. But I hadn't had the. No, I did do the ESPN thing for the Rumble. I did the ESPN thing for the Rumble. I found another way to watch for Elimination Chamber. I watched that after the fact. And then I watched this in the theater. And I probably won't tune back into another WWE pay-per-view until maybe SummerSlam if I can find a way. Well, unless something significant is going to happen, I'll find a way to watch. But I'm probably not going to be tuning back and trying to find that big of a deal to watch shows. So I say all that to say, again, the ads were egregious. That is the big deal. And anybody trying to act like that's a normal thing or that that's okay or that that's how it should be. If you're arguing that that's how it is now, I can't argue that because it is how it is now. But if you're telling me anything else, you are being very disingenuous and whatever. But now we got that out of the way. The second issue I mentioned, as well as the ads, is how short some of these matches were. Because again, it felt like a lot of times they were rushing through. And, you know, it's funny because on night one, I didn't necessarily like, I wasn't like counting match times or anything like that. I was just watching. But what happens is, like I said, the six man, when it ended, it felt like, oh, that's it. Like something happened and it's like 1, 2, 3. And I was like, that's it. Nobody's gonna make the save. That's okay. Now, there was a little extensive post-match after that I guess, you know, if you take all that, and look, there's bell to bell time, but I also take into account there's usually post-match stuff. I think we should count, because I'm a person who's big on the pageantry. That's another aspect of this. I'm a person that's big on the pageantry of WrestleMania as well. I love new outfits. I love special entrances. I love special entrance outfits. I'm here for all the pageantry of the entrances and all of that. So I do think that part is important. And since that part is important, I think you should factor all that in. The ads are still egregious, right? I would rather you cut the ads and give everybody a special entrance. If that's the case, you know what I mean? Like that's, so everybody kind of, so you have some special entrances. That was cool. But the matches were like, wait, that's it? And then going into night two, having then learned how short everything was, because again, I wasn't counting. Drew and Jake Fatu felt like the right amount of time. The women's tag 4-way, it felt short, but most WWE women's tag matches feel short, if we're being honest. So that wasn't really shocking. Um, Shout out to Paige being back. Um, Seth and Gunther, I think, went out and gave it a good go. You know, that felt, and I think those were the two of the three matches I think that went over uh, 10 minutes. Jacob Fatu, um, Seth and Gunther, and Roman and I'm sorry, Cody and Randy Orton. Oddly enough, all the women's matches under 9 minutes, under 10 minutes. Seth and Becky, I'm sorry, I keep saying that. Becky and AJ Lee kind of felt like it went about the right amount of time, but could have went longer considering. And it also saying like AJ was kind of like the third player in this because it was more about Becky and Jessica Carr. So that was a thing. What's the other women's match? Oh, and then Stephanie McCurry and Liv. I feel like Stephanie McCurry going for the widow, the Devil's Kiss, whatever it's called. Which seemingly early in the match because the match wasn't even 10 minutes yet. It like I understand. There are a lot of casuals now that are appealing to a different crowd, perhaps. I get people saying, "Oh, I don't need these super long matches," because the AEW thing. Look, some of those matches are long, drawn out. They're a completely different brand of match, completely different style of match. But that is, but to act like some of these matches were not criminally short. And again, WWE does have a history sometimes of having short matches at WrestleMania. That's not new. For that to be the vibe of the whole show, and then it's not even that the matches were bad. A lot of times, like they were good. They just never really got to a point where you can get invested. I think that's the thing. Like people are saying, like, "Oh, I was sports entertained, or I was fine. It was entertaining. It was good enough." That's kind of like an I accept what I get kind of mentality, which can be fine. But if you just accept what you get, that's how you kind of fall into like the space of accepting less or getting less and getting less and getting less and just accepting it. Because you're just accepting what well, that's what they gave me, so that's what I got. Hey, look, I mean, that's cool. But I got a much better value over here with the sickos. So go figure. But if you enjoyed, you enjoy. And I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy. It's just that's egregious. The ads are egregious. So there's that. And then and the shortened match times in sacrifice to the ads is egregious. It's all egregious. So, you have to acknowledge that. I'm sorry, you just have to acknowledge that. Now, I spent, like 15, 20 minutes now bashing, not even bashing, but just talking about the ad thing being egregious. Because it is egregious. It was egregious. That's the one big complaint I had really from the whole weekend, even up to the short matches. None of the matches were actually bad. They just never, got off the ground. Like I said, I mean, nothing on night one really, I felt like I could sink my teeth into. I was like, I saw somebody make a post as well because I'm going through threads and I'm back and forth between threads in my Facebook group as things are happening. Nothing really saying my. You know what the lasting thing from me for Mania Night One was? Bianca being pregnant because it broke my heart. That's why I'm wearing. This. It broke my heart, but congratulations. But you broke my heart. You broke my heart. For those that don't know, I am hatefully envious of Montez and Bianca as a couple. Not even just like Montez being with Jay, like as a couple. You perfect sons of bitches. I hate y'all. Your perfect ass little marriage. Now your little perfect ass little family. I hate you people. I hate you. And I usually do this with I wish there was like a green eyes emoji. I'm jealous of not much in life, if anything. But you motherfuckers, I hate you. I love you, and I hate you at the same time. But shout out to Bianca for being pregnant. She came out looking all glowy. That's my takeaway from night one. Bianca's pregnant. Everything else, and we booked. We did some really weird stuff in the main event. Now, going into night 2, WWE had one job. One job. Had they fumbled on that one job, and it was going to be the first thing of the night, had you fumbled on that one job, it would have ruined the entire night. I promise you. Not just for me, but for a large swath of your viewing audience. If you had fumbled that one moment, this entire thing would have been off the rails. Fortunately, they did the right thing. They did it in the right fashion. I've seen people say they wish they could have been longer. I've seen people say they wish it could be shorter. I think it was perfect because I think people were saying Oba needed to squash Brock. And sure, but I think it was also important to show how Brock's offense was not affecting, to show him having the resilience, to show it not affecting him to the way that it affects everybody else. If he just beats Brock, but Brock never does anything to him, I get the squash nature of things, but it doesn't really showcase him in any way. For Brock to, to be thrown off, to be thrown around, to hit him with these clotheslines and have somebody straight up no sell it, I don't think anybody's done. I hard pressed. I'm sure there may be one or two people, maybe Omos or something, but like nobody has done Brock that way, and not much if they have at all. So to have it was important to showcase Oba not just dominating, but taking the offense and it not being enough and dominating that way. So I think it was a perfect amount of time. It didn't need to be long. Brock doesn't really do long matches for real, especially not in the opener. So it was a perfect amount of time, and then you got the whole thing after the fact. So there's that. Night 2 was, and then after that, night 2 was actually fire. And I think in the inverse, like I said, night 1 usually hits so hard and they get so much stuff right in night 1, and then night 2 kind of feels like, yeah, okay, it was cool. I don't think there's ever been this much of a disparity, but I think it was because night 1 was so whatever it was. And people are saying it's bad. Like I said, I don't think it was bad. I don't think it wasn't entertaining. I think it just never felt like it got off the ground. And the one thing that did have time was weird, was the Cody and Randy stuff. So with night 2, you kick off with Oba, right decision, right time, emotional thing happening on night 2 with Brock retiring. We'll see. Then you get the ladder match, which was given a lot of time, and they were moving. You could tell they were moving much faster. And anybody who says they don't like selling, that they don't like people who don't sell, I mean, you didn't have to sell. You just take a move and then you get out of the ring until your next move is up. But that's come on now. Anywho, then you get what's next. So then that having one less match feels like it did space things out a little better. The matches on night 2 absolutely seemed to all go longer where they needed to. What else did we have there? We had, was it Trick and Sammy to open? There's only 4 matches. Trick and Sammy? Yeah, I think Trick and Sammy opened. No, yeah. Trick and Sammy opened the pay-per-view portion of the show. Trick and Sammy definitely fell short. That's the first one that felt short that should have been longer, I think. Because I booked this. So I explained this to somebody last night. There were one or two ways, and I said I wasn't getting into all of this, but there were one or two ways you could have booked that part. You either book it for Trick to have the moment and win, or you book it for the double turn and Sammy to win. And it's just a matter of how you chose to do that. And they went with the way they went with it. And I think it was fine either way. The other thing I think would have took a little more time in the match. And they didn't do that. And it's fine. And we have, that's fine. Maybe the only complaint I would say I had from night 2. But not in the match or the outcome, but in the length. Because you would need a little more to tell a little more story. There's not that much though. Jade and Rhea. Jade looked good. Like I kind of said that at Elimination Chamber when Rhea won. I'm like, it's a dream match, kind of. Rhea can carry her to a good match. Jade is good enough if she has a good partner, and if she has somebody. When Jade has to carry, it's not that great. If Jade has somebody who can carry her, who make up for her deficiencies, she's like a Selena in a way, which makes sense to why she would be a star. That match was pretty good with Rhea and Jade. Outcome I think was kind of like, okay, whatever, but I didn't care one way or the other. Demon versus Dominic got a nice amount of time. Got some really creative spots there, some brutality. It's weird that both of the weapons matches, basically street fight, no DQ matches, whatever you want to call them, both ended with somebody going through a table. That's kind of an interesting thing there. But it was good to see the Demon back. Would have been nice if they surprised us with it, but they never let us have nice things. I don't. That's a WWE thing, man. They are upset. They cannot have the surprise of him showing up as the Demon. With NXT, you didn't have to have a surprise because you knew at the pay-per-views who he was going to show up as. And then on regular, he was just fan. So that was just thing you knew, and it wasn't like a character. It's just that's who he was at the pay-per-views. It was at the NXT takeovers. With WWE, like they never let it just be. He just shows up as that. And there's ways you can do it without actually like advertising it too. So that's a thing. But whatever. And in the main event, I posted this in several places. And I'm going to talk more about it Saturday, but I was actively watching and thinking, are we watching the classic? Are we watching the classic in the making? I just watched the video of Mark Henry saying it was the best match he's seen, I guess best WrestleMania match, since Shawn Michaels and Undertaker in Mania 26. I think that's a stretch. But I also saw somebody say a little more condensed that it's the best match they've seen, the best match in Mania in the last 10 years. And I had to run that 10 years gap. And I was like, okay, well, you got Bianca Sasha in there. And you got both nights of 40 that were really good. Usos versus Sammy and KO. But I'll be damned if it wasn't. If it ain't the best, it's in the top. It's in that. Listen, as I stated when I first started talking, I didn't really have a lot of high hopes for any of this, especially not the main event. Easily, perhaps, I would have to go research. But off the top of my head, probably one of the best Roman matches I've ever seen. That didn't break down into shenanigans as far as like outside. It wasn't a bloodline match. They didn't have hooded figures. Just Roman out there, and probably the first time since the bloodline stuff started, where you didn't have a Jey Uso, where you didn't have like he just went out there to kick ass. And the story, even though a lot of people kind of didn't like the finish, I've seen people say they didn't really like the finish because it didn't make sense. And at first, it didn't kind of make sense to me. I kind of heard somebody say it, and it kind of gave me the framing. It did break down to him being old. That he gave and he gave and he fought and he fought and he fought, and he literally just gave until he didn't have anything else to give, and that was the difference. That's the story. Look, I told us of what you want from WrestleMania. That is it. In the same way, like I said, of Shawn for that, and make yeah, I think definitely probably one of the best storytelling matches. In the same way that like if we're putting it in that category of like Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker at 26, where Shawn's fighting for his career, 100% probably the one of the, I'm hard pressed off the top of my head, but I'm going to do that research today, and I'll be back Saturday to confirm whether I think that's true or not. That this is the absolute one of the best matches, main events since Mania 26, because that could be true. I actually think that may be true. It was a great night. 2 felt like Mania. Night 1 felt like Saturday night's main event. I've seen somebody say that, and I think that makes sense, and that explains why the anticipation was still so high for night 2. And again, I think, and you kicked it off the right way. You made the right decision, the one decision that everybody was like, it's got to be over. If you do anything other than over, and I said that before, you will cause a mutiny, especially with the ad, for everything that had been wrong. Had you got that decision wrong, this entire weekend, I think, would have been a bust. If everything else went the way that it went, you may have redeemed, but the sour taste that would have left in everybody's mouth if you kicked it off that way, would have been immeasurable. So, shout out to everybody that was on WrestleMania. Shout out to everybody that enjoyed it. I can't say that I didn't enjoy it. I just wish that there were things that they did different. And the ads are egregious. I'm sorry, they're egregious. The ads are egregious. Having to work with ESPN, this app thing is egregious. We did not know. I can't even say that. I was going to say we did not know how good we had with WWE Network. We did. Because if you think of the quality of WrestleManias that we were getting for $9.99, don't get me wrong, there were some stinkers in there. There were absolutely some stinkers in there. So we got, I want to say the first one was 30. Yeah. The first Mania was 30. So we didn't even get a full 10 years of that shit. So the first Mania on the network was 30. The last one was it 21? Was it 36? Because the pandemic one was on the network. Was the next one on the network too, or was it on Peacock? I think so. We got a good 7 years, 6 or 7 years of Manias on the network. And even Peacock wasn't that bad, but the network was, like I said to somebody, it was perfect even when it wasn't. Bring back the network. They'd never do it. There's way too much money in the catalog and selling the catalog, and we're all about the money these days because that's why the entire WrestleMania 42 experience and TKO's involvement and all the deals they've made just proves that WWE is no longer what you may have thought. Unless you had for some people it is exactly what it always had been. It's even more now. Probably it's either not what you thought it was before, or it's exactly what you thought it was before, and even more. It's one of the two. It is what it is. It is what it is, and there's not much we can do, not much we can say. But I have ranted and raved for way too long. I will be back Saturday. Saying that this turned into a whole episode at this point, because now it's 40 minutes. I'll be back Saturday with the full breakdown, because this wasn't it. I'll be back with the full breakdown. We'll go over my predictions and how right I wrong I was. My thoughts about each match on the show. I won't go into like super deep detail because I never really do that. And then like some Dynamite stuff probably gonna happen Wednesday. So we'll see. And then there's tonight because it's Monday. So tonight, of course, there's Raw after Mania. So who knows? The last ones have kind of been lackluster, but we'll see where that goes going forward because now we got a lot of things to work with coming out of WrestleMania, especially night two. Night two felt really transformational in ways that like night one didn't. So we will see what happens tonight on Raw. When I come back, we will talk about all of it. So until next time, even though this is unofficial, we are out.